It is narrated that when Imam Husayn alayhi salam was born, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, started to cry over Imam Husayn. When he was asked why he was crying, he replied with eyes filled with tears, "An unjust group shall slay him after me." Imam Husayn was raised in a pure family. His grandfather is the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. His father is Imam Ali alayhi salam. His mother is Sayyidah Fatima and his brother is Imam Hasan, peace be upon them all. He had the best of characteristics and morals such as kindness, humility, courage, patience, and always upheld to the truth and forbade the wrong. After the Prophet's death, and even before his death, there was a discord and disunity between companions, certain Arab clans, and the hypocrites. The pure family of the Prophet had to deal with extreme difficulty and great danger, not only to themselves and to their family, but to Islam as a whole. There are many chains and events that led to the martyrdom of Imam Husayn alayhi salam in Karbala, but we want to start with a person called Muawiya. So who was Muawiya? Muawiya is the son of Abu Sufyan, who was a staunch enemy of the Holy Prophet and had many wars against the Prophet, peace be upon him. Muawiya's mother is known as Hind. She is known for her hatred towards the Prophet and known for eating the liver of the Prophet's uncle Hamza, the noble defender of Islam. Muawiya grew up in a family known to be cunning, materialistic and hungry for power. Muawiya and his father Abu Sufyan are called tulaqa. Tulaqa literally means when a prisoner is released even though they deserve punishment. The term was used after the conquest of Mecca, when certain people only became Muslim to save their lives. Muawiya was very hypocritical in his actions and had extreme vengeance in his heart against the Holy Prophet, his family and followers. Muawiya had an elder brother called Yazid, not to be confused with his son, also called Yazid. His brother was appointed as a main commander by Abu Bakr after the Prophet's death, and then later on Umar bin Khattab appointed him to be the governor of Syria and surrounding areas. After Yazid died, Umar put Muawiya in his brother's place as governor. Upon coming to power, Muawiya took advantage of the rich public treasury of Syria, using it personally to buy favors and influence people. After Umar died, Uthman bin Affan reappointed Muawiya for the same position, even though many people had objections to it. Uthman also gave Muawiya additional powers and influence, so much that Muawiya became the most powerful, influential ruler of Islamic lands. The unjust distribution of the public treasury by Uthman and the appointment of unjust governors led to an uproar and protest by the Muslims, which eventually had Uthman killed. Imam Ali alayhi salam became the rightful caliph of the Muslims. He ordered that the wealth and properties of the public treasury that were unjustly taken must be returned. Certain leaders didn't like their position taken away, so they began to plot against Imam Ali. Imam Ali also removed the unjust governors from their positions, especially Muawiya. Muawiya wasn't going to stand down quickly, especially after gaining so much power, so he refused and also started to plot against Imam Ali. The ones that lost their positions and couldn't gain power allied with Aisha, the Prophet's widow, and claimed to take revenge of the killers of Uthman, in which started the war between the Muslims. The war is known as the Battle of the Camel. Imam Ali couldn't ignore the situation. He had to act fast and restore peace and order. He tried to persuade the opposition of their wrongdoings, but did not succeed and led to thousands of people losing their lives. After the opposition was taken down and the war was over, Imam Ali stayed in the city where the war took place for a while to try and restore law and order. At the same time, Muawiya had plotted to kill Imam Ali, and a war broke out between both of them. The war is known as the Battle of Siffin. As Imam Ali's army was about to win the war, Muawiya deceived the people by hanging the Quran on spears and forced the Imam to negotiate and use an arbitrator. Muawiya's sly tactic confused many people and Muawiya escaped defeat. The arbitrator did not deliver the message of the Imam and deceived the people. Certain followers from Imam Ali's army were confused about the outcome and felt double-crossed and deceived by Muawiya. The sly trick of Muawiya left them disappointed, and some of them rebelled during and after the war, and they formed a separate group called the Kharijites. The Kharijites took matters in their own hands and didn't obey Imam Ali, but also opposed Muawiya for his deceit. They continued to cause mischief, and Imam Ali alayhi salam tried many attempts to calm them down, but resulted in a war called the Battle of Nahrawan. The Kharijites were defeated and some wounded and some escaped. In the meantime, Muawiya used this opportunity to invade other countries and cities such as Egypt, Hijaz, Yemen, Iraq, and other neighboring countries to gain more power and influence. He bribed many of the Imam's troops, many of them leaving to join Muawiya. Muawiya also used the opportunity to spread secret agents all over the regions to defame the Ahlul Bayt. He would even curse Imam Ali alayhi salam on the pulpits in the mosque. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, has said, "Loving Ali is a sign of belief, and hating Ali is a sign of hypocrisy." In another narration it says, "We recognize the hypocrites by their hatred of Ali." The Kharijites that escaped now planned to assassinate Imam Ali, Muawiya and Amr ibn As, who was an enemy of the Prophet and had complete enmity towards Imam Ali. Imam Ali alayhi salam was martyred while praying, while Muawiya and Amr got away. Never in the history has anyone seen a ruler like Imam Ali alayhi salam in justice and purity, and one who had preferred the truth over falsehood rather than obeying selfish desires. Imam Hasan alayhi salam, the son of Imam Ali, became the rightful caliph of the Muslims. Imam Hasan faced extreme difficult conditions from the start. The people and most of his followers had fear and insecurity, which was caused by Muawiya's mischief. With Imam Hasan's wisdom and knowledge, to expose Muawiya's hypocritical behavior and to stop the bloodshed of the Muslims, he made a peace agreement with Muawiya with some conditions. Some of the conditions were that the Imam will hand over the authority to Muawiya, provided that he will act according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Muawiya had no right to give the leadership to anyone after him. The authority will go back to Imam Hasan, and if he died, it will go to Imam Husayn. He will give security to the people. Imam Hasan will not call Muawiya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Muawiya had to stop cursing Imam Ali and to speak well of him. Muawiya had to repay the rights of those oppressed. He must not curse and defame the Ahlul Bayt. Muawiya must not plot secretly against Imam Hasan and Imam Husayn. Muawiya agreed to all the conditions and became the illegitimate caliph of the Muslims. Soon, Imam Hasan and Imam Husayn and their family decided to go to Medina and leave Iraq, the same country that deserted him and deserted his father. In Medina, both Imams lost no time in holding gatherings for Islamic discussions. These gatherings became very successful and gained tremendous popularity. People from as far away as Egypt, Iraq, Yemen and other distant areas traveled to Medina to learn from the Imams, and they produced a large number of Islamic scholars. In the meantime, Muawiya broke the conditions of the peace agreement and tried his best to defame the Ahlul Bayt and stop them from gaining any popularity. One thing Muawiya would do is put preachers in all areas under his control to defame the Ahlul Bayt and distance people away from them. He instructed his people to forge narrations and attribute them to the Prophet so that the value of the Ahlul Bayt may be decreased. The fabricated narrations that came from Muawiya are divided into three groups. 1. Fabricated narrations in praise of companions to make them equal or at a higher level than the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt. 2. Fabricated narrations that defame and reduce the level of Ahlul Bayt, especially of Imam Ali. 3. Fabricated narrations in praise of Muawiya and in praise of his father and his family. Another thing Muawiya did was send agents to terrorize, kidnap, or even kill innocent people, especially those who were loyal to Ahlul Bayt. Instead of helping the needy with the public treasury, Muawiya's governors used the public treasury for personal use, freely and excessively as they wished. Many of Ahlul Bayt's followers protested against Muawiya's injustice, but were killed by Muawiya, such as Hujr and other companions. Muawiya also had a son called Yazid and wanted him to become the caliph of the Muslims after him. Yazid was a symbol of corruption, oppression, drunkenness, and an example of disbelief and apostasy, because wherever there is mischief and corruption, there is the name of Yazid, and wherever there is good, truth and justice, there is the name of Imam Hasan and Imam Husayn. But the peace agreement Muawiya had with Imam Hasan alayhi salam would cause major conflict from the people if he chose Yazid as caliph. Therefore, if Muawiya outlives Imam Hasan, he could do as he pleases. In order to pave the way for Yazid to be Muawiya's successor, Muawiya offered Imam Hasan's wife a lot of money and to let her marry Yazid if she would poison Imam Hasan. she found the offer too attractive to ignore and foolishly agreed to accept it. Medina was never the same without Imam Hasan alayhi salam. Everybody missed him dearly. People started to see the true reality of Muawiya and started to hate his hypocritical behavior. Muawiya continued to bribe the people to pay allegiance to his son Yazid while Imam Hasan was out of the way. Many people accepted his allegiance of fear of being killed, or were offered large sums of money. Imam Husayn and his family and followers did not listen to Muawiya and did not pay allegiance to his corrupt son Yazid. Muawiya finally became seriously ill and inflicted with serious diseases and eventually died. Yazid now became the next illegitimate caliph and continued the same policy as his father by bribing, pressuring and threatening people to accept him as the Islamic ruler. Yazid told Walid, who was his governor in Medina, to ask for Imam Husayn's allegiance of loyalty or else he would be killed. Imam Husayn did not accept and decided to leave Medina along with his family to proceed to Mecca. The Imam also knew that during this season many people from around the world performed the Hajj pilgrimage, so he would take the advantage of this time to try and gather more support against Yazid. The whole empire was going through terrible times and anyone who dared to say anything against Yazid was harshly dealt with. The chastity of women was no longer safe, marriage lost its sanctity and their dignity was placed at the pleasure of Yazid's brutal soldiers. When Imam Husayn reached Mecca, he received thousands of letters from the people of Kufa urging him to go to Kufa to be their leader and they will support him. People could not bear it anymore. They wanted someone to defend the true religion of Allah. When the Imam received these calls for help, he had to respond. However, he could not blindly accept the call from Kufa because the people of that city were well known for their unstable character and conduct. So the Imam sent his cousin Muslim, the son of Aqil, to Kufa to get first-hand information about the situation in Iraq. In the meantime, Yazid spread many secret agents in Mecca to assassinate the Imam without caring for the sanctity of the holy place. The Imam became aware about the spies and carefully evaluated the situation in Mecca. At the same time, in some reports it states that the Imam received a letter from his cousin Muslim from Iraq. The letter stated that more than 18,000 people from Kufa will support him and it is safe to come. The Imam decided to go to Kufa and address the people. Yazid, through his spies, found out about Muslims' success in Kufa, so he appointed Ibn Ziyad as the governor in Kufa, who was a tyrant and a person that loved to shed the blood of Ahlul Bayt and their followers. Meanwhile, as Imam Husayn's caravan got closer to its destination of Kufa, Imam Husayn received shocking news. The shocking news was about Muslim ibn Aqil and another companion named Hani ibn Urwa, both of whom were arrested and beheaded by the governor Ibn Ziyad. Imam Husayn gathered his companions and told them the sad news, and also said, "The people of Kufa have deserted us. Those of you who prefer to leave us may do so freely without any guilt." Becoming scared, some companions left the caravan. Imam Husayn alayhi salam continued with his journey along with his close companions and family members until he was stopped by 1,000 horsemen led by Hurr al Riyahi, representing the enemy by the orders of Ibn Ziyad and Yazid. Imam Husayn warned Hurr of the consequences of obeying a man like Yazid and urged them to refrain from staining their hands with the innocent blood of the family of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Hurr was completely ignorant of the situation and realized that the Imam was determined to lay down his life and sacrifice anything for the sake of his aim of universal reform. Hurr suggested to the Imam to go towards a station which is neither Kufa nor Medina until he speaks to the governor Ibn Ziyad. The Imam, his family and companions then continued their journey and Hurr followed them until they reached a place called Karbala, in where they stopped and set up their tents. That day was the 2nd of Muharram. When Ibn Ziyad realized that the Imam had stopped, he sent another group of soldiers to surround the Imam, which was led by another greedy tyrant, Umar ibn Sa'd. On the 7th day of Muharram, Umar ibn Sa'd moved his troops closer to the camp and blocked off the water supply that the Imam had access to. From that day onwards, not a single drop of water was allowed to reach the camp of the Imam. The scorching desert sent heat waves everywhere and the little children began to cry with intense thirst. 2 days later, on the 9th of Muharram, a wicked man named Shimr arrived in Karbala with thousands of soldiers with orders from Ibn Ziyad. The orders stated if Imam Husayn does not surrender and give allegiance to Yazid at once, he will be killed immediately. When the Imam heard the message, he refused to obey a person like Yazid, but asked to delay fighting until the next day. During the night, the Imam told the companions, "The enemy is only after me. You are free to leave and take advantage of the darkness of the night." The people who had come with the wrong intentions had already left before, and the ones who remained were perfect in their faith and loyalty. The next day, the 10th of Muharram, known as the day of Ashura, was a day when no tragedy in history is as painful and as terrible as the tragedy that befell the Imam, his family and companions. After the morning prayer, the Imam's followers took it in turns to come forward to address Yazid's army, trying to convince them of the terrible crime they were about to commit. Finally, Imam Husayn alayhi salam came forward himself and gave a speech to the enemy once more to try and persuade them to leave off the path of sin. With the Imam's speech, Hurr, the commander of the army who was on the opposition, came towards righteousness and joined the Imam before it was too late. The speech was so powerful that some troops from Umar ibn Sa'd also joined Imam Husayn. Seeing the result of the words of Imam Husayn alayhi salam, Umar ibn Sa'd was concerned that most of his troops would be affected, so he threw the first arrow to indicate the start of the battle. This was the beginning of the battle. After a few single combats, there was a general attack in the mid-morning. Although the enemy pulled back, most of the army of the Imam alayhi salam were martyred, including Hurr. Ali al-Akbar, Imam Husayn's son, obtained permission to fight and rushed towards the enemy. He fought bravely and killed around 200 according to some reports. He was then struck and then attacked from all sides. Imam Husayn alayhi salam rushed towards his son until he became a lifeless body. The Imam wept for him and said, "May Allah kill the people who killed you, my son." The sons of Imam Hasan and Sayyidah Zainab and their cousins also asked permission to join and fought bravely, believing in the Imam's mission, but were also martyred. Abbas, the brother of Imam Husayn, who was also the commander and flag bearer of the camp, was extremely moved at the painful case, seeing their children and women suffering from deadly thirst. Seeing the situation too crucial to bear, he rose up against the army and was determined to get water by force. He cut through the large number of Yazid's soldiers and scattered them until he got to the river. Even though he was very thirsty himself, Abbas did not drink any water because Imam Husayn and the children who were also waiting for water were still thirsty. Instead, he filled the water skin and rode back as fast as he could. While he was returning on his horse with the water, he was attacked and severely wounded. As much as he tried, Abbas could not save the water. He fell from his horse until he passed away. The patience of the Imam alayhi salam, how was he able to bear these tragedies? At that moment, Imam Husayn heard his baby infant crying because of the thirst. Imam Husayn's love for his family was unbound, especially for a suffering baby. He held the baby in his arms and appealed to the enemy for some water for the baby, in order for them to feel some sympathy. Instead of offering water, they shot arrows, killing the infant. Imam Husayn felt an unbearable wave of pain as he stood alone facing thousands of wretched enemies. He fought them bravely and kept fighting, receiving many wounds in the process. The enemy of Allah surrounded the Imam from all sides and his pure blood was dripping from their swords. Some historians have said that the Imam received at least 120 injuries from swords, spears and arrows. The Imam alayhi salam remained on the ground for some time until the enemy of Allah beheaded the Imam. Not content with spilling the innocent blood of Imam Husayn and his companions, Umar ibn Sa'd ordered to set fire to the tents and let the horses run over the bodies of the dead Muslims. The exposed bodies of the martyrs were left lying in the desert of Karbala for a number of days. Their heads were put on spears while the women and children were put in shackles and taken as prisoners to Ibn Ziyad in Kufa. This is how these tyrants left the beloved family of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in such a horrible condition in a place called Karbala. May Allah remove His mercy from all those who paved the way for the killing of Imam Husayn, his family and companions.